right, what I'd like to do first, as we always do, is just have everyone on the board introduce themselves, and then we can get into the agenda. I've got a short chairman's report to issue, and then we can get into the agenda. So you want to start down with Mo, and then
Mo Mekchi.
John Zazzo.
Richard Kessel.
Chris Wright.
Charo Esdrin.
Lester Petracca.
Okay, we have a full board complement tonight, and we do have a quorum, so we can meet. I want to call this meeting of the NYFA Board of Directors to order. It's, well, it is a little later than I thought, it's 6:55, but we'll call ourselves to order. I want to thank you all for coming, thank you in the audience for coming. I also want to acknowledge our Executive Director, Evan Cohn, who's up on the left, and all of our staff, I think, are all here tonight, and thank you all for coming. I do want to indicate to the board that the staff is doing a terrific job under circumstances that I'm not sure we anticipated, but they're really just, everyone's pitching in together and working hard. I do want to give you a couple of brief updates. Number one, on the Nassau University Medical Center. I do want to indicate that since our last meeting back in January, there have been some developments that I do want to report to you. And I want to just say that that NYFA and our staff and our consultants who are not here this evening, we'll get into that a little bit later, have done an excellent job. We have been working pretty much daily about some of the situations that I'm sure a lot of you have read about at the hospital. But I wanted to briefly update you that working with the State Health Department and the Governor's Office about earlier this month, in fact on March 1st, the Health Department did send a letter to the hospital that asked the hospital to take certain actions regarding their financial condition, which frankly from our perspective is deteriorating and continues to deteriorate. I can report to the board, I don't think it's any secret, that their current cash position is about $25 million. However, some of that money is money that they receive from the county in terms of an advance payment on health benefits that the hospital provides for and gets paid by the county. If you take away that payment that was made, it should have been made over the summer, instead it was paid now. You take away that cash and they're down to a pretty low level at this point. And you know, they do have a payroll that they have to make. It's the last one in March, next Friday. And I would say to you that based upon our consultants' work, that they're going to have some real challenges meeting their payroll in April. They will make it, but we have some concerns about it. I know that they've disputed that, and I do want to indicate to you that, you know, we have limited conversations with the hospital. I have some direct conversations with the chairman of their board, Matt Bruderman, and but the dialogue that was going on with the hospital that was getting better has now kind of slowed down to a trickle at best. We're trying our best. We have asked for some information, and I'll go over this in a second, but I must tell you that that while Matt and I have been talking regularly, and I thank him for that, the bottom line is that most of the communication that we were having with the hospital about their status is not taking place at this time. The health department did write a letter, and part of that letter was asking them to comply with certain health department requirements and certain requirements that they asked NYFA to be involved in. And I don't need to repeat those conditions at this point. They have so far not really complied with most of those directives. They are providing us with their daily cash summary, period. I do want to tell you that the health department is taking this very seriously. There is a meeting that's scheduled for tomorrow with staff of the health department, the hospital, and NIFA to discuss compliance with the directives that were laid out in this letter. I provided you previously with a copy of the letter, obviously this letter is a public document. But at this point, we are trying to work through with the state and the health department and the hospital to see whether or not the hospital is going to comply with the requirements that were outlined in the health department's letter. They've been given 30 days to comply, which means they have about 2 weeks left, and we're continuing to work through this with the hospital and the state health department. We did have a call earlier today with the state on some of this, and I will continue to keep you posted. I do want to express again my continued concerns about the hospital's financial condition at this point. There are other things that obviously we're monitoring, and I will keep you posted as closely as I can. But I think that one of the things that is pointed out in this letter is that the state is no longer going to fund the hospital through grants without some major reforms that have to be made at the hospital. Whether the hospital is going to comply with that or not, I don't know at this point. I know publicly they've indicated they're not, but I'm not sure that that's the case. I think, it's one thing to deal with NIFA, it's another thing to deal with your regulator, the health department. We're not their regulator. We oversee the hospital. We don't regulate the hospital. So at this point, I think that, the next couple of weeks are going to be very indicative of where this relationship goes and where this hospital goes. But I do want to indicate that the state, through the health department and through other agencies, is very serious. There is no interest on the part of the state to close that hospital. Despite what the hospital keeps saying, the governor doesn't want to close the hospital. I'm not speaking for them, just telling you. The governor doesn't want to close the hospital. Our staff doesn't want to close the hospital. NIFA doesn't want to close the hospital. No one does. So for some reason, Adam Barsky doesn't want to, only because they keep mentioning Adam Barsky. I figured I'd tell you, I talked to him. He doesn't want to close the hospital. We all recognize the importance of that operation, that facility, to the future of Nassau County, especially to minority groups, the underinsured, the uninsured, the indigent. It's a critical place of operation. We want the hospital to grow, survive, and thrive. And so does the governor and the state. But right now, under current situation in terms of the management and the governance of the hospital, we are very concerned about the short-term and long-term future of the hospital. So I've asked Mo and Lester and Chris to keep us advised. And I know they're going to give a report today about the future of our consultants. I just want to say one other thing, and I can repeat this later, is, we've been criticized a little bit by the county controller for spending all this money and not doing anything about the hospital. We are doing something. We are doing more to protect and to watch over that hospital than the county controller is doing. And I wish we didn't have to spend that kind of money, but it's critical, because I will tell you, and I think it's important that the board knows this, because everyone on this dais is very engaged in the hospital. If we weren't involved, this hospital wouldn't be operating today. We were able to expedite payments from the state to the hospital of approximately $50 million. That if it weren't paid, the hospital would be out of cash now. And I think that's important to point out. And we see our job very seriously. We are spending almost full time on oversight, advice, and other things that relate to the survival of that hospital. And we take our responsibilities very seriously. And I want to just thank the board and, of course, our staff for all the input that I've gotten over time. And I will keep you posted, as I regularly do, but I do think that the next few weeks to a month are going to be very critical to what this hospital is going to look like going forward. So that is my report on the hospital.
Mr. Chairman, can I just, it's a clarification of something you said,
Sure.
I think to underscore it, because when you
Thank
mentioned
you.
that the hospital has received funds from the county and they received funds from the state, in none of these instances is it more money, it's just more money sooner, which means it's less money later, right? And so that, I think that kind of, in my view, crystallizes it all. It's advances on cash now that they won't get later in the year, right? And so it's not that there's
Absolutely
extra money. They got more now to get them over the hump, but it's still the same total in a 12-month period.
Right, and Chris, you're 100% right.
Okay.
And to be frank about it, in following the limited information that we get, we used to, and I want to thank Carl in particular, who's been terrific on the hospital. We used to have weekly calls on Thursday afternoons, not me, but our staff, with their staff, to understand exactly what's going on a week-to-week basis. They have discontinued those calls. The only information we are getting, as I said, are the daily cash balances that I'm getting. They're sending it to me alone. But other information that they're going to be required to give as per the Department of Health's regulation, they have not complied with us at all. But that's all going to be worked out one way or the other. But I think your point is well taken. There,
And you made it, I just wanted to
No.
reinforce that point.
And you
So,
said it
yeah.
better than I did, but it's true. The money that the county pays, the money that the state pays to the hospital, advancing that payment to help the hospital out on an interim basis may help them out on an interim basis, but long term, now, for instance, the money, and Carl, you correct me if I'm wrong, the money which was from the county, which is about $11 million, right, that normally is paid over the summer, right? Monthly.
Through July.
Right, so by paying it now, they're not gonna get it in July. That means, same thing with the dish payments and the transfer payments that were made. But one of the things that this letter says, and I know you've all read it, is that there are other grants and monies that are available that the hospital is not gonna receive under the current situation over there. And, it's getting to the point where some major decisions are gonna have to be made. And, we whether we like it or not, we're very much a part of it. And we just have to keep our fingers in the till. Anyway, if there are no other questions, I do want to indicate just one other thing, and that is that, we are a control board that the NIFA board voted on about 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years ago. And we have to approve a lot of county contracts. And I think we have a pretty good relationship with the county. Yeah, we've got ups and downs. Sometimes we don't get certain information. But I do want to just alert, without getting into details, I want to alert the board that over the next month or two, there are going to be a number of controversial contracts that are going to have to be discussed by this board. They're not the routine variety of contracts like the ones we have before us tonight. I just want to indicate to the board that we are researching very carefully all of these contracts and will deliver the right legal opinion at the right time. Listen, I've said this before, we're not elected to run the county. That's the job of the county executive and the county legislature. But we are elected to make sure that things are appropriate, that expenditures fit within the financial plan and the budget as adopted and approved by the legislature and NIFA, but also make sure that when contracts come to us, that they're for a legal purpose and an appropriate purpose. And I'm just telling you this now, so you're not surprised, and the county isn't surprised, that there are some issues that are going to come before us that are raising some concerns. I don't want to go into what the specifics are at this point. We're just beginning to review the contracts, but it's something that we're going to have to discuss probably as soon as our April meeting. So be ready for it. We're all going to have to deal with it. With that, that concludes my report. We're now going to go to the business at hand, which are a number of contracts. First, we've got the minutes from our last meeting of January 16th.
Move their approval.
Second.
Okay, any comments, corrections, additions, subtractions from those minutes?
No, I'll move to approve.
Okay, all right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Any abstention? Okay, now we've got a number of contracts, and I want to ask the board, accepting number 10, do we want to take them as a group? And Martha, what's your preference in terms of,
I would prefer to present the first two ones, 355 and 335 together, then Edna alone, and then in another group, 333, 336, and 337, and then as another group, 335 and 355.
Because those last two are more or less the panel deals where they, 3 possible consultants for $10 million. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm okay with that,
if
Mr.
that's
Chairman.
okay with the board.
thank you, Martha. By the way, and I said this, Martha has been doing an outstanding job. And I think the explanation of contracts that she provides to the board are right on target, and, we're not experts in this, but she is, and thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
All right, so let's first take the first two, correct?
Yes, so EA Restoration and Wellsback.
Okay,
So these two contracts are with the Department of DPW, Public Works, and the vendors were selected through an open competitive process. Both contracts will be funded with capital proceeds. Approval of the contracts does not guarantee future borrowing authorization. 355 EA Restoration. The purpose of the contract is to provide general construction services for the replacement of the HVAC equipment, roof replacement, and associated general remedial repairs to the A32 building, also known as Building E at the Nassau Correctional Center in East Meadow. The contract term is 1 year from the notice to proceed and is valued at $15,270,000.
My only question is that part of a larger series of contracts for that building, or is this the one building for that contract? Is this a $50 million program, and
we
that's
have,
15 of it, or?
No, this is, it's
One of
an
the-
independent contract for this project that's only has to deal with the roof repair and all the mechanical equipment on the roof.
thank you. You want to identify yourself for the record, just so we have it?
Douglas Tuman, I'm one of the deputies over at DPW.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
The next one is 335 Wellsback Electric. This contract is for the routine construction modification and support of the county's approximately 1,600 traffic signal intersections, 300-plus miscellaneous devices, and 600-plus street light devices and any related equipment. The contract's term is 2 years with an option to extend the term for an additional 1-year period. The contract is valued at $9,322,200. The funding includes the renewal option.
So all three, that would be 3 years, if the 9.3 million would be 3 years?
Hold on, yes, 3
Okay.
years, a total of 3 years, yes.
That was my only question.
All right, so let's take them, I think we can vote on them and then go to the next, right? Martha, you're okay with that?
Yes, so
Okay.
you can vote on, you're gonna
All right.
vote on these two.
Yeah, so are
Yes.
there any questions on the part of the board about either of these contracts? I'm hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve these two contracts, E&A Restoration and Wellsback?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, those contracts are approved. Next, Aetna, correct?
Aetna Life Insurance, yes. This is a contract with the Department of Human Resources. And is an amendment to a contract, to an existing contract. That adds $6.4 million in funding and 1 year to the term from January 1, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. The contract is for the administrative services for the flexible spending account and the new health reimbursement account that was established with the new CSEA contract. On January 31st, 2024, the NIFA chairman approved $880,000 as per the county's emergency request. The amount to be approved today by the directors is the remaining, which is $5,520,000. That brings the total to $66.4 million.
So the contract's new, different, and a little bit later in the process because the contract to which it relates was also, in relative terms, the CSEA contract, relatively new as well.
Correct.
So this is sort of
there's
catching up to the contract, if you will.
It's the flexible spending, and the new item is the health reimbursement account.
And just to put on the record that I did approve a portion of it to help the county get through the timing issue, but I did inform all the directors
It's true.
that in fact I was doing that. I want to indicate one other thing, maybe not specific to this, but myself and a couple of the staff members met with the county about a month and a half ago, and I know Charo expressed a real concern about sending us contracts that are already being utilized. So in other words, basically, they're already utilizing the service for the contract before we approve it. And we communicated to the county that we will no longer do that. If you have an emergency, and Etner, I'm only thinking about it, not that it was an emergency, but there was an issue of timing. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call us, and we will work with you to make sure that you're not hurt in any way. But if we're going to get contracts and we find out that they've been used for a year before getting our approval, we will no longer approve those contracts. And we did communicate that to the county. And I think the board should know that that is our position, unless it's an extraordinary event. So this is the way to do it if you have a problem with a particular contract. Don't say that you're putting a contract before us and you've been utilizing the services of the company or the law firm for 6 months. That's not acceptable to NIFA going forward. Anyway, are there any questions?
Martha, this is for calendar 2024?
Yes.
That's
Yep,
why
I'm good. I'm happy to approve to move to approve this.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, carries. Now, what do you want to take now for?
The next group will
five.
be NV5, NMP, and Louis McLean.
Okay,
So these three contracts are also with the Department of Public Works. The vendors were selected through an open competitive bidding process. The county awarded a contract to the top 5 firms that submitted a proposal. These contracts will be funded with capital proceeds. Approval of this contract does not guarantee a future borrowing authorization. The scope of these items is to provide on-call civil engineering and site development design services for the Public Works Civil Engineering and Site Development Unit. The term of the contract is 4 years from the notice to proceed with a 2-year renewal option. Each contract is valued at $10 million.
We've done similar situations like this where there's essentially a panel of possible service providers.
Correct.
And I think you do almost a mini RFP for each project as they come up.
Yes.
Right, you make them kind of compete against each other. Is that still the case?
Yes, Harold Lutz, Nassau County Department of Public Works, Director of Traffic Engineering. Good evening. Yes, these are on-call contracts to handle work overflow
Right.
and as provides a selection service for us.
And just one quick follow-up. You said, I think, Martha, you said the county selected the top 5 firms. Just a quick overview on the criteria of what's a top firm versus not.
It's firms that have experience with Nassau County Department of Public Works standards and specifications, firms that have experience in the type of work we do, including roadway design, drainage improvements, and efforts like that.
Thank you.
are there any questions, further questions from the board? All right, do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion?
John?
Second.
Chris, second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay,
So the next group is WSP and BHP. These two contracts are also with the Department of Public Works. The vendors were selected under the same competitive bidding process. 10 vendors were awarded a contract. These are the last two out of the 10 contracts. The board has already approved the other 8 in meetings in September, November, and January, I believe. The contracts will be funded with capital proceeds. Approval of these two contracts does not guarantee future borrowing authorization. The purpose of these contracts is to provide on-call traffic engineering services to DPW Traffic Engineering Unit. The term for these items is 5 years from the notice to proceed, and each contract is valued at $10.5 million.
And Mr. Chairman, so this is the last two of that?
Yes,
was it
the last
six-
two.
6
Yes.
or 8 that we looked at? We've
10.
done 10. We've done a couple.
Sorry, there is a total of 10. The board has approved 8.
Right.
This is the last
But
two.
even the 8 we approved in pieces too, right?
Yes, you
Okay.
have approved it in, September, July,
hey, Mo.
and November.
So this is just the fulfillment of that full panel?
Yes,
Okay.
correct, yeah.
Got it.
Okay, are there any other questions on the part of the board for these two contracts? All right? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Okay, Lester?
Second.
Okay, second, okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you, Martha. Carl, you want to come up? This is on the amendment to the contract with Alvarez and Marcel regarding their consulting services regarding the Nassau University Medical Center. I'm going to ask Carl to make a brief presentation, and then I'm going to hand it over to Mo and to Lester.
Yes, your attention is being called to item number 10, which is an amendment to the contract with Alvarez and Marcel, increasing the maximum amount from $700,000 to $1,250, an increase of $550,000,
Not 12, not
which will
12.
1.25 million.
$1,250,000, which will have us ready in the event that we need to call Alvarez in for any future assignments, depending on what the needs are as being identified in the interaction between the hospital, the state, and NIFA.
And I'll just add, Mr. Chairman, and for the board, that I've spent time with the staff and with several of the board members, in particular including Lester and Chris, talking through the specifics around the need for them to continue, just given the current situation of the hospital and where we are. We think it's critical to continue to retain them. We are not going to use them, at least on a go-forward basis, on monitoring liquidity, because I think the staff, Carl and team, have a good handle on that today. But we expect there to be a need to utilize them, and we think it's critical that the board approve this today.
So Mo or Carl, explain to us how this works. So they can spend up to a certain amount,
That's
but it
correct.
has to be prior authorized by staff? Is that how it works?
Yes, the assignment will have to be, set by staff and/or the board, and, and we'll look for a not to exceed and so forth, an estimate. And then, if that's approved, then we'll move forward.
And both the staff and I have discussed this with them, and they're comfortable with that arrangement. So for the short term, they will be in a low maintenance sort of monitoring situation. But if we need them to jump in and do anything more, they'll be available to do that.
Okay.
And they'll have the staffing to do that.
And just to add that I think Alvarez and Marcel have done an excellent job on monitoring the hospital and giving us pertinent information. And even though they're not here tonight, but I want to thank them for all the work they've done. And obviously we'll continue to utilize them. If any members of the board need further information, please let us know. We will, we're in constant touch with them, and I think they've been very useful. In fact, if you looked at their projections in the report they issued about a month ago, it's exactly where they said they would be, almost to the dollar. So I think they do an excellent job. Lester, do you want to comment further?
There's really nothing I have to add to what Mo said, and but I do agree, and I think Chris agrees, that they're absolutely necessary. Their expertise is very much appreciated, and I think they'll help us get to where we need to get to.
And I think as Mo and Lester said, this creates the capacity to call them in where we need them, but we're gonna not use them for some of the tasks that our own staff are capable of performing in the meantime, to make efficient use of their time and better use of ours.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well put.
Carl, just one thing, and I had to ask you as part of this, and, you know, we talk all the time, but there are specific directives that NYPA is going to be responsible for if they ultimately decide to comply with this letter. That's obviously something that they're discussing. And do you foresee that we may need Alvarez to help us on some of that compliance, or is that kind of stuff that you think we can handle in-house?
I believe we can handle that in-house. That's what we've been doing in the past. You know, in terms of analyzing the financial data, monitoring the cash balances and so forth, we can do that in-house. And we have done it.
Yeah, I was just going to add, we'll continue to review our needs, assess our needs as we move forward, with, assuming that we could do most, if not all, of the work in-house, and supplement it as needed and as directed by the board, just to reinforce the fact that right now Alvarez and Marcel is kind of in a in pause mode, and it's only for future work that would not be initiated unilaterally by them, but only upon the request and authorization by the board.
Thanks, Evan. Any other questions? Okay, so you want to have a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Do we have any further business before I make a motion to go into executive session? Any board member want to say anything? No? Okay, always want to give everyone the opportunity. I will now entertain a motion for the directors to conduct an executive session pursuant to Public Officers Law 105 to consider the financial history of a particular corporation and certain matters related to collective negotiation pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
Chris? Okay.
John made, I'll second.
All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Just to indicate, we'll now go into executive session. I don't anticipate any action in executive session that will require a vote, but I don't guarantee that. I would expect the executive session to last somewhere between 15 minutes and a half hour. That's it.
Like DPW shouldn't be expected.
No,
Like, if
no.
you were here with business before us, you're probably good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Good move. Okay, we'll be back. You want to stay? I want to reconvene this meeting back from executive session. Do I hear a motion to
I'll move that
do?
we come back from executive
Chris,
session.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
No votes or action were
Okay.
taken.
Report that no votes or any actions were taken in the executive session. The next meeting of the NYPA board is scheduled for April 16th at 6:30.
Yep.
And I'll be in touch. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Stand
Aye.
Leave.
Exactly. Have a good night.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
We'll be-